Let's talk about Ben Simmons. I don't know about you, man. Like, I just feel bummed watching Ben Simmons now. It's kind of where I'm at. Like, this is a guy that at 23 years old, like, rightfully made an all NBA team. He averaged 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists, shot 59% from the field, and was one of the 5 best defensive players in the NBA. And you watch him now, and it's just not there. Like, this is a Nets team that's desperately calling out for someone like this, and it's just not there. I mean, before I get into like what Jacques Vaughn said and everything, like when you watch Ben Simmons, like what are you watching?
I continue to just be disappointed for what could have been. I think that's just
Yeah.
the easiest way to say it. That a true 6'11", 7-foot guy with his handling, his speed, his ability to cover ground on the offensive end of the floor, combined with really good vision and playmaking. We saw some high level flashes from him in Philadelphia, even without a jump shot. And if he's not even willing to try to get to the basket and score, and he's just so much more of a, I got to move this, I got to pass the ball around and just create for others, it makes it so much easier to guard any team that he's on. And it's disappointing.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because Jacques Vaughn gave a really interesting answer, getting this from Timmy Goodtimes over at ESPN. His Twitter feed, kind of laid it all out. Jacques Vaughn said to a question, does the lack of having stars drawing the defense around him make it more difficult to figure out the best ways to use Ben Simmons? Jacques Vaughn's answer, it's going to be some work that we have to do because you just take a look at what the lineups could potentially look like. You put another big next to Ben, then you got to figure out what the spacing is around him. Then if you put another playmaker next to him, then you got to figure out what Ben looks like without the basketball. Then if you go small with Ben, then you have to figure out, can you rebound enough with him? So the challenges are ahead of us. We'll look them head on. We'll figure it out. We have the personnel to figure it out, whether it is me mixing and matching throughout different pieces of the game and allowing him to have a group and run with a group. That part we'll figure out, but you see the challenges that lie ahead. It really comes down to 2 things for me. It's the shooting that he just never has improved ever. It makes it harder to keep him on the court. If he is a spacing liability, you're essentially playing 4-on-5 when he's without the ball. The number 2 thing is he has lost it athletically in comparison to when he was younger. The back injury, it feels like, has really, really sapped his explosiveness, his flexibility. Like, he was a flexible 6'10" athlete that could like get up and down the court, had like very flexible hips, had very flexible movements throughout his core. And it just feels like he can't really do that anymore. He doesn't have the explosiveness in the open court that we used to see all the time, where he was a freight train coming downhill when he got the ball off the glass and just went. I just like, more than the mental stuff, and we can maybe talk about that, I just don't see the same guy physically anymore. And to me, that's an even bigger, like, that's what makes me sad when I watch Ben Simmons. Like, that's what really substantially bums me out. Like, you can see that the brain still works. Like, his passing is still there.
Yep.
He has phenomenal hands. He has great hand-eye coordination. Like, you can see a lot of it still there. It's just not, it doesn't work as well when he's not as athletic. And we've seen this with guys like Russell Westbrook, for instance, that no longer have the athleticism to necessarily like fully dictate play. When they lose that like step athletically, basically, it just becomes really, really hard.
Look, if you're not a great shooter and you're playing off the ball, you can make positive plays happen by being a great athlete. You go attack the offensive glass, you backdoor cut, you slash around, you take 1 or 2 bounces, and you just try to yam on somebody. There are ways to offset spacing issues if you're really, really bouncy, if you play with burst. And he's not able to do that anymore. And it just compounds the lack of shooting and quite frankly, the lack of desire to want to finish through or over the top of contact. I think that right now he wants to be much more of a short roll playmaker and somebody who just one, maybe two bounces and he gets rid of it and tries to use that great brain and passing ability of his to positively impact his team. I think it comes from a good place. Ben Simmons gets a lot of, I don't want to call it hate necessarily, but he gets hated on a lot for the progression that his career has taken. And I do think that the physical stuff has a lot to play into where he's at in his career right now. It's sad to see. I think I'm clearly rooting for Ben Simmons because he's such a fun, unique player when he's at his best. And those guys are just rare and really, really fun to watch. But I don't know how to get it back, Sam. I really don't know.
Well, and then like there is the confidence thing. Like he passed up another like shot at the rim last night that probably should have taken. I think that there are real confidence issues now. And part of it could be like the body breaking down on him in terms of where the lack of confidence comes from. He just doesn't look like the same dude that we saw in Philadelphia. And that's what's sad about this. Like Ben Simmons should have been a perennial MVP candidate. He genuinely should have been. He is 6'10", 240 pounds. He developed into being a top 5 defensive player. He averaged 16, 8, and 8 as a 23-year-old in the NBA. He was a top 20 player in the league as a 23-year-old in the NBA. And this is where we're at. Like it feels like we've been robbed of seeing what this could have become as much as anything. And I think that that's what's sad to me about it. And look, like, I don't think Ben does himself any favors. I don't think that, he seems to be a bit aloof about the whole thing. He can get, it seems, defensive about everything. And then, you see there were the things about him, like basically demanding to play point guard with Philadelphia and all of that stuff. And, you can be your own worst enemy at times in terms of the public perception. I do think the media is probably a little bit aggressive on him. I mean, look, over here, it is bonkers. There was like a News Corp headline last night that when he passed up that layup, it was like he made the cardinal sin of basketball again. And it's just what are we doing, guys? Like, are we just like, are we going to pick out every specific play and like make a headline on it about Ben Simmons because like there are issues in this country about like the way people perceive him because he hasn't yet played for the Australian Boomers and a number of other factors that I really don't want to dive into right now. It's sad. The entire situation is sad, and it is in part exacerbated by the fact that I think many people in the media do seem to enjoy, and maybe I see this more because I'm here, right? But I do think that many people in the media seem to enjoy often critiquing this and critiquing Ben and like when bad things happen to him. And that part of it sucks. Like that part of it is just not, I get it. Like I get that he's not what he was. And I totally understand that critiquing players is part of the job. Like you and I do it all the time. Yep. It is important. You have to be able to point to specific examples. You have to be able to talk about guys in real tangible ways, but it feels a little bit different with Ben, I guess. In the same way, it feels a little bit different with Westbrook, right? Like, again, like another guy that I do think can bring it on himself from time to time. It seems like the locker room situation from all reporting in Los Angeles was not great, but then you just see some of the stuff in the media and it's just like, this thing kind of sucks, right? Like the whole thing, it bums me out. When we see like talented guys seemingly go through either the end of their career, like Russell Westbrook is right now, or injury issues mixed with like mental mentality issues like Ben Simmons seems to be going through.
Well, For me, as far as we've come as a society in terms of awareness on mental health stuff, on sports psychology, on the challenges and pressures that all of these guys face, we still have a long way to go in terms of how media, people like you and me, whoever, end up perpetuating that. And I
Yeah.
think that's the challenge that, and where I feel sympathy with Ben Simmons is he's got a lot to overcome. And when you add the physical challenges of the back, the different environments that he's been in, missing an entire year of basketball doesn't always help people. Like they're not going to come back and just be the same type of player, let alone person. So I end up having nothing but a kind of sympathy for Ben in this regard, and don't tend to throw a ton at him and feel like he is what's robbing us of being able to see this special and unique and great player. But at the end of the day, I'm just disappointed we don't get to see that, because
Yeah.
he's really, really fun on both ends of the floor. Like I loved Ben Simmons picking up guys from 35 feet and just poking loose balls away, taking off in transition from rebounds and runs, and hitting these awesome passes over the top of defenses for transition dunks and layups. The ability that he had in the half court to just take one bounce, spin move, and create an open shot for himself or somebody else. He's a really fun player. And he hasn't looked like he has fun playing basketball in a long period of time.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that translates over to how much of a joyful player he can be. If he can
And how
find
he's
that again,
perceived, right?
yes,
Like
if he
I
can
think that a
find
lot
that,
of it, yeah.
if he finds that again, I think that that's where the hope comes from. But again, is it physical? Is it mental? Is it situational? There are challenges that Jacques Vaughn definitely was right on the money with, and how he talked about
Yep.
what needs to happen in order to get the best out of Ben Simmons.
It's
But
hard to have him on the
it's
court with Nick
hard.
Claxton. Like
It's
it's
hard.
hard, and Nick Claxton is one of the 5 best defenders in the NBA this season so far. It's hard. It's really hard to have him on the court with Nick Claxton, and Nick has proven himself to be better so far this season. So I don't know, man. It's a challenge. All of this is a significant challenge, I think, in trying to figure out where the future of Ben Simmons lies.